Center that the water level here in Naples had risen about 7 feet in 90 minutes. What do you know about that, and what can you do with that information to project forward in terms of what we're looking at here?
Well, I tell you what, first and foremost, I'll answer that. But, Chris, I just want to thank you and your crew for what you've done today. It's very rare to get the pictures you have given us to match with the radar images. And there's not many times in history that all of us get to experience what's it like to batter that eye wall and then into the eye. When it comes to the storm surge there, yes, it's been 7 feet. In fact, 4 feet in just 20 minutes. But you've got to start at where the level of normalcy is. So the water level is up 4.1 feet above normalcy. The forecast is actually 5 to 8. So it's reasonable to assume that you're getting that wraparound wind. You can actually see another 3.5 to 4 feet if we go with the forecast. Now, word moments ago, down in Marco Island, the water is now overlapping the seawall. That's not what you want to hear. Water rides farther and faster over water instead of just land. Now, we're hoping now that this has made landfall, that Irma's going to start to choke and sputter, kind of like cutting the fuel line off for your lawnmower. It still has energy until that pressure starts to rise. We're not going to lose the significant strength as far as some wind gusts, but we'll still have damaging winds. When you look at the radar, and you mentioned, Chris, 2.3 million without power, I want to mention that's just customers. That's not the number of people without power. That's one home or one business. 2.3 million without power is almost 50% of their customers. So, or Florida. So, I mean, that's massive to look at. All right. Still have the tornado watch, and we still have warnings. Let's not forget about the East Coast that is seeing extreme surge, band after band of rainfall. We cannot forget about that. And in fact, around just looks like near the Orlando area, north and south, tornado warnings. We've seen over 33 tornado warnings. That number will go up. Now that we have the eye in the center here, we'll go in a little bit closer. We are about 3 hours from Port Charlotte. Now, again, when we make our way in the eye toward Fort Myers, you are in the northern band. And again, we're going to see probably the center of the eye get there within the hour. So they're going to go through the same thing you went through. 3 hours to Port Charlotte, and then about 6 to even 8 hours in the Tampa area. What's frightening at this point is that the same conditions that everybody watched, that Chris Cuomo went through, they're going to go through this, but in complete darkness. So we won't have the visuals of the flying debris, of the wall of water extending out or coming back in. So when you're flying blind, the fright really starts to grip you, and it will. But again, we're starting to see a little bit of a breakdown on that southern eye wall, which is great news, Chris, although the engine is still running, and so the surge will continue to push into every bay, every canal. And again, as we've talked about the last couple days, we're not talking about a few hundred feet. I thought I heard you say you're like 5 to 8 blocks in. We're looking at a surge that could be as far in as several miles. And some of the inundation maps from the National Hurricane Center were pushing in as far as 8, 10, even 12 miles in some cases on this coast. But again, that happens when the center of the storm is to the north. Again, the wind gusts we're getting, and this is quite interesting, even up toward Orlando, gusts of 43. By the time the system moves northward, it'll start to kind of stagger the imagination that even in Orlando, if the system kind of continues to hang a little eastward, gusts at 85 are not out of the realm of possibility. Even up toward Tallahassee, they could see 70, 75 mile per hour wind gusts. But notice down in Naples, when you were at that 141 reported wind gust, we have no longer any instrumentation to go with. That most likely will be the scenario as the storm continues, but we're hoping to lose a little bit of a punch with this as it moves in. But again, Chris, as you've been talking about the storm surge, 9 out of 10 people in hurricanes lose their lives from water. So it doesn't matter if it's surge or what's falling, 9 out of 10, and you've been getting the message out. We all appreciate that.
God forbid, we'll keep an eye on it. I have eyes on this street for you, Tom. That's the best I can do in terms of monitoring what happens with this surge. We do not envy those who have to go through the eye of this storm in the dark. That is the stuff of nightmares, and our hearts go out to those who are doing that with their loved ones and probably don't have power, so they're not even able to follow along and benefit from your wisdom and timing. Tom, thank you very much. We'll check back with you in a little bit. Right now, before we go to long time. All right, so Chris Cuomo here in Naples along the west coast of Florida, areas of particular vulnerability here. Hurricane Irma took advantage of that. The eye wall coming right over this area. Chad Myers says that there was a sustained gust of about 140 miles an hour. That would stand up as some type of record for a hurricane from the area from whence it came. But the statistics are irrelevant, and the difference between a Category 2 and 3 is mostly about the science. It is only relevant if it's predictive of what's about to happen to the people on the ground. And what we were worried about wasn't us standing in the weather just to show you what's going on and give you information and arrest some of that curiosity, but it was to give you a window into what these people who stayed behind are forced to deal with. And that's here in Naples and what we've seen in Miami. Now, after we take this break, we're going to send our coverage to Anderson Cooper. He's about 130 miles north as the storm flies. He's in Tampa Bay. They're going to deal with the same thing and in the dark. Our coverage will continue right after this. Stay with CNN.
You. It was going to be coming back in a storm surge, moving quickly. We've already started to see a little bit of that in Naples, Florida. Naples, Florida, where Chris Cuomo and Ed Lavandera have been covering for the last several hours. The storm hit, the wall hit about 2 hours ago and hit very hard. We're going to show you some of those images, also images tonight from Miami Beach. Water flowing through the streets like rivers. Extraordinary images out of Miami and all points in between. First, though, I want to go to Miguel Marquez, who is in Punta Gorda right now. Miguel, how are things there?
Hours away from
his team was in Naples, about 60 miles north. We're about 40 miles north of Fort Myers. I want to show you that phenomenon that you guys are seeing up there in Tampa. We're seeing here as well, which this is the marina for the city of Punta Gorda. All of the boats in there are not on water, they're on mud. You can see there's a big one off in the distance there, and there's a sailboat right in front of it.
It's circulated. He's now pounding us here in West Palm Beach, as you can see. I heard Miguel talking a little earlier about, you know, the ferocity of the wind feeling like needles on your face. That's exactly the way it feels here. Not a comfortable feeling. Some other horrible news tonight, Anderson. We learned a short time ago that we do have confirmed 2 fatalities of law enforcement officers in Hardee County who died in a collision with each other, 2 separate vehicles. So we can report that tonight. Authorities are telling people here, do not venture out in this tonight because you could get arrested or you could get seriously hurt. Anderson.
The death of any law enforcement or first responders, I mean, that's the worst case scenario. We've been talking to so many law enforcement personnel who have been saying, look, when it gets just too dangerous to go out, protection of the officers is paramount. That's awful to hear about those two officers. We'll try to find out more details on that. Brian, just in terms of storm surge, I know that had been a concern in West Palm Beach. Have you seen any of that there? Is there water on the ground?
There's a little bit of water, Anderson, but I think for the most part they dodged that bullet here. We were told to expect some flooding on Flagler Drive, just to my left to your right, from the intercoastal waterway. Thankfully, that has not happened. The water is intense there, a lot of white caps, and we're not out of the woods here yet. But so far we have not, thankfully, seen that storm surge. What we have gotten is tornadic activity. Water spouts have developed in the intercoastal waterway that have threatened inland in this area with tornadoes. There were tornado warnings just to the west of us, and tornadoes that were spotted moving from the south. So we're surrounded by tornadic activity, and luckily none have touched down right where we are. But
it's 15 miles east-northeast of Fort Myers. So it doesn't look like they're going to get in the eye. We'll break it down. But at the top of the hour, we've seen a rise in the pressure, which means it's trying to weaken. Just as we have seen drops, it takes a while for the wind speed to catch up with its strengthening. When the pressure rises, it takes a while for the wind speed to react to weakening. Now, what this means is, hey, Category 2, pay no attention to that. We're still 1 mile per hour away from a Category 3, which is considered major. We still have a lot of red on the infrared imagery, so it still has quite a bit of high cloud cover, high colder cloud tops, and we're seeing that. Now, Tornado watch to the north. We cannot forget about these tornado warnings, and they're near the Orlando area and off to the east on the coastline. But when we get in closer and you look at the center here, a couple of things we're going to be talking about, and that's the surge. Notice the heavy activity of the convective activity to the east of Fort Myers. We are looking at Fort Myers. We're looking at the eye pretty much, as mentioned, east-northeast of them. So again, they're going to miss the eye, and it's going to continue on its movement to the north. Now, we're still getting some pretty good wind gusts out of this. In fact, we're looking at Fort Myers. They had a wind gust of 88 miles per hour. You get into around a little closer and even around Cape Coral, we'll get looking at 101. So it still has some strength. It's not as strong on the southern end, but again, as it continues to move, we're wondering now, and of course, as you were talking about around Punta Gorda, we are still thinking about, 8:30, 9 o'clock. So again, if the system continues to move at 15, our question is, will it move due north, or will it start to curve back toward Tampa? And again, for you, Anderson, that's still a good, it may be late tonight in the darkness, 6, 7 hours or so. And that's the frightening part of this. Now, if we get in a little bit closer and we look at the other side, besides looking at the tornadoes and the surge to the east and the northeast, we look down to the south. Marco Island right now, they're completely seeing water now, not just submerged the docks, but it's over the seawall. And now we have in Fort Myers, this is quite interesting now, or in Naples, in Naples, we've seen a 4.9 increase now. That's above normal tide. 4.9, that's above the ground. The forecast, remember, is 5 to 8. So really, after the water receded and pushed out and away toward the west, in the last 3 hours, the water height has increased by 9 feet. So it continues to go up. At 4.9, that's above normal height, and we're going to continue to see a little bit more. That is on those westerlies that are coming in, and that's going to be the problem for the entire west coast as the storm moves northward. Again, we're not going to see the eye move over Fort Myers, but you don't have to be. You're still seeing those wind gusts that mentioned that are about 100 to 88 to 101 miles per hour. We're hoping that the system will start to choke itself down now that it's over land, but again, it's still a massive storm that's going to take a while. The heavy bands of rain are going to be blinding areas of central Florida and toward the east. They will try to wrap around this eye somewhat, but it's going to be in the darkness of night. And I can't stress this enough. As the system moves northward, we're not going to have the pictures that we've been able to see all day of the flying debris, knowing what direction the winds are blowing in. So it's going to be quite harrowing for millions of people that are going to be just hearing objects hit the home. They're going to hear shingles come off. They're going to hear trees break and branch and fall. They're not going to know exactly what they're dealing with. That's why you just got to hunker down without power or with it if you're one of the lucky ones. I don't think the eye is going to move right over Tampa where you are, but we're going to watch it closely. You may still, again, just be on that western eye wall, which is strong enough, Anderson.
So I just want to reiterate, because it's a little hard to hear you. For people in Fort Myers, you're saying the eye will not cross over Fort Myers.
No, it's 15 miles east-northeast. So they're still in the eye wall. They're just on the western eye wall. I mean, it's still strong, but they're not going to see a calm in the winds. And then they'll continue to deal, of course, with that surge coming in on the back edge. But it doesn't look like they're going to get in the eye. It's already passing to their east-northeast.
All right, well, that's a little bit of good news for them. Tom, thanks very much. I want to go to Drew